In a flashback, young Rokurōta is observed by his parents as he eats and plays with some rocks. Time then shifts to adult Rokurōta killing his parents and the people of his village. Genji pushed Sagiri aside as Rokurōta moved to attack with an open palm, causing him to receive the blow and be sent flying with a deep wound across his body. Sagiri rushes to Genji's side but he tells her to flee the area without him because of the depth of his wound. Sagiri then saw Rokurōta preparing to attack her, but was saved by Gabimaru after the shinobi rushed in to keep the giant away from her. Sagiri told Gabimaru who Rokurōta is, which unfortunately reveals to her that Yamada-Asaemon Aizen is dead because he is no longer with the convicted criminal. Realizing that Rokurōta was eyeing him like a prey, Gabimaru figured that escape was impossible and that he would have no choice but to fight and kill him. His previous kick had no effect on Rokurōta, with Gabimaru deducing that he would have to test the giant's strength to know how to take him down. After jumping off the tree thrown by Rokurōta, Gabimaru told Sagiri to leave the area to avoid any damage. Gabimaru also asked Yuzuriya for help instead of standing in the tree watching him. However, he was rejected by the Kunoichi because he was responsible for fighting his battles according to the terms of the alliance, but she would show support by cheering him on, much to his annoyance. Although Rokurōta's destructive attacks seemed like they were nothing special, Gabimaru decides to be careful, to avoid being hit. He realized that he would die if he took a single blow from the giant, so he chooses to attack Rokurōta from afar using ninjutsu. However, because Rokurōta was unaffected by the two jutsu he used, Gabimaru had difficulty determining which jutsu in his arsenal was best suited for this battle. Believing it's too late for him, Genji asks Sagiri to leave him behind instead of trying to heal his wounds, but she refuses. Genji then comments on how strange she is acting because before she looked like a man, but now she acts like a woman. Sagiri explains to him that it doesn't matter whether she acts like one or the other because all that matters to her is stopping him from dying. Hearing this, Genji realizes Sagiri's true nature, realizing that she embraces opposing notions makes her the embodiment of the middle path. He then gave his sword to her and asked her to kill Rokurōta as a Yamada-Asaemon, as this was his final wish. With his inability to engage in close combat and use bullets, Gabimaru came to the conclusion that he would have to team up with someone to defeat him. After dodging another one of his attacks, Gabimaru noticed Rokurōta screaming in pain after his little finger was chopped off and watched Sagiri standing next to him as she explained to him the method of taking down someone as strong as Rokurōta. Feeling relieved at her arrival, Gabimaru asks her for help and she asks him for the same. While being held back by Yuzuriya, Senta asked her to release him to help treat Genji's wounds, but was refused as she believed it was too late for him and she could tell he was not that kind of person. She then noticed that no monsters appeared despite the noise and believed that they should take this opportunity to observe them and run away after they died. In order for Sagiri to decapitate the giant, Gabimaru suggests separating the two to cut off Rokurōta's legs, causing him to kneel. After Rokurōta lunged to attack with a punch, Gabimaru deflected it with a kick while Sagiri came from behind Rokurōta to slash his leg. However, after seeing Aizen and Genji's faces, when they were knocked down by Rokurōta, Sagiri's blade was unable to cut Rokurōta and was forced to retreat. Sagiri then corrected herself, saying she must put her emotions aside and stay calm in order to succeed. Sagiri and Gabimaru then make a second attempt to bring Rokurōta to his knees. While moving away from the giant's next attack, Gabimaru found his leg strained after deflecting Rokurōta's punch earlier, while Sagiri was unable to leave a cut on Rokurōta again due to his movements closing the gap between his bones. Sagiri then tells Gabimaru that he must keep Rokurōta still, for her to be able to behead him, which Gabimaru finds to be a difficult task to accomplish. Rokurōta's stomach then growled and he screamed, catching them off guard. Gabimaru then took a direct hit from the giant and ended up seriously injured. Sagiri rushes to Gabimaru's side but sees a punch from Rokurōta. She prepares to defend herself by remaining calm in the face of impending danger. However, after recalling Genji's explanation of her true nature as following the middle way, Sagiri realizes that she must accept both emotions and reason and find a way to deflect each attack. Seeing this side of her, Gabimaru feels Sagiri displays the same strength he witnessed when they first met at the prison. While Yuzuriya is surprised by Sagiri's behavior when facing Rokurōta, Senta informs her that Sagiri is ranked 12th in the Tameshi Ido Ryu, due to her gender causing her to lose her position. Genji notes that Sagiri's strength shines when her mind is determined even though she lacks combat experience. After Rokurōta lost his balance, Sagiri saw an opportunity to come in from behind and decapitate him. However, Rokurōta jumped away before Sagiri could lower her sword. Although the opportunity was missed, Gabimaru told Sagiri that he had come up with an extreme plan to make Rokurōta bow and reveal his neck. Gabimaru activated Ninpo Hiboshi, which warned Yuzuriya to flee the area with Senta. Gabimaru then performed various fire-based jutsu against Rokurōta but it did not damage him as he deflected all of them towards the forest. Gabimaru then stops straining himself and Sagiri tells him that he has done enough for his plan to succeed. As they flee the area, Yuzuriya informs Senta of Gabimaru and Sagiri's plan to start a forest fire due to the fiery jutsu that Rokurōta deflected. This will cause the giant to suffer carbon monoxide poisoning, ending with Rokurōta falling to his knees choking. Sagiri then received the opening she needed to decapitate Rokurōta while he was held back as long as possible by Gabimaru. After hearing Sagiri's funeral bells, Rokurōta reflects on his life. He had a wish to play with someone, and fill his ever-growling stomach. As Sagiri clung to Rokurōta head, who began to shed tears, Sagiri apologized for realizing too late that he must have been afraid of him and hoped that he would rest in peace with the others he had killed. She flees with Gabimaru before the fire becomes more intense, and Sagiri tells herself that she must be strong, but becomes saddened by the deaths of both Genji and Aizen. Gabimaru and Sagiri then noticed the monsters were attracted by the fire and decided to head in the direction they came from. While Gabimaru's goal is to continue moving forward to see his wife again, despite his serious injuries, Sagiri is determined not to worry about the other clan members in order to quickly end the mission and free them from their role. Hearing this, Gabimaru thought they had found common ground, but Sagiri reminded him that she was still his supervisor throughout the mission. The two then meet up with Yuzuriya and Senta, and were surprised to see a village in the distance, with Senta wondering if this was where the Sennin resided, and if the island was really Shinsenkyo. Elsewhere, Chōbei, while drinking monster blood for food, learned from Tōma of the Sennin living in Shinsenkyo but did not think much of the legend. Chōbei then senses something ahead of him and decides to head in that direction with Tōma, leading the brothers to find two women having sex atop some ruined statues. The two women then turn towards Chōbei and Tōma after being interrupted. The blonde woman wonders how the two humans got so far onto the island despite the Soshin in the area. Chōbei is on guard as he interprets this statement to mean that they are not humans themselves. The pink-haired woman notices that they are cute and offers to let them participate in their previous activity, making the siblings uncomfortable. After berating her partner, the blonde woman transforms into a man and scolds Chōbei and Tōma for ruining the fun. The brothers then become alert when they sense tension coming from the weird being. After discovering the ruined village, which the group assumes to be the Sennin's residential area, Gabimaru voices his opinion about how they should care more about whether the people on the island are friend or foe. He then senses a small hooded person spying on them from behind a tree, and pursues her. After catching up with her, Gabimaru lowers her hood, revealing the spy to be a little girl. He wonders if she is a human from the continent or something else. The group then encounters a tree lifeform that tries to protect the girl from them. Gabimaru and Sagiri ignores it and chase after the girl as she continues to flee. The former wants her to tell them more about the island, and the latter needs to keep an eye on the convict assigned to her, leaving Yuzuriya and Senta behind to face the creature. Yuzuriya decides to take the opportunity to test if her ninjutsu would work on a monster, but not before taking Senta's glasses to keep her ability a secret. Gabimaru reaches out to the girl and takes her hand, telling her that it is important that they talk, but she suddenly pushes him aside, much to his surprise at how she could have done that given her small body. The girl finally stops running when she hears Sagiri screaming to reassure her that they don't intend to hurt her, and that they just want to ask her a few questions. However, she tries to defend herself against Sagiri with a punch, but Gabimaru steps in, taking the attack. He then began to bleed from his mouth and realized something strange had come from the blow, which reminded him of Sagiri's fight with Rokurōta. In desperation, Gabimaru uses vines to restrain the girl, and coldly tells her not to make it difficult for him, which ends up causing the girl to cry at his frightening gaze. Gabimaru then turns to Sagiri and asks her what he should do, and the assailant tells him to let her go. After Sagiri helps the girl calm down, the two meets up with Yuzuriya, who had defeated the tree life form. The tree life form surprises the group after it begins to speak and asks them to give the girl back to him. He says he would lead them to the village and would also tell them about the elixir of life. Yuzuriya believes that the best option is to question the girl, as the tree life form may be trying to trick them. However, she is easily swayed after the tree creature claims that there is a bathroom in the village that they could use. As it led them to the village, Sagiri asks Gabimaru if they trust the tree life form, since they know nothing about it. Gabimaru replies that it doesn't matter as long as the being knows about the elixir. However, he also assures her that if it tries to trick them, he will kill it. After arriving, the group notices the destroyed and uninhabited village and learns from the tree life form that it has existed for 1,000 years. The group then arrives at its house, but before Gabimaru has a chance to ask the tree any questions, Yuzuriya demands that she first take a bath. As Yuzuriya enjoys the bath, Gabimaru is annoyed by her voice while he stays outside with Senta. He asks Senta to deal with it, but the assailant tells him that it is out of his hands. Yuzuriya had offered for Gabimaru to go to the bathroom with her, but he declined immediately. So Sagiri decides to accompany Yuzuriya to the bathroom to watch her, swapping criminals with Senta. As she enters the bath, she relaxes a little bit too much to do her duty, much to her chagrin. The young girl then gives Sagiri cloths, and she thanks her, but the young girl doesn't reply and leaves, making Sagiri think that she doesn't know how to speak. The tree life form then offers the two men food, but Gabimaru suggests that Senta shouldn't eat or drink anything until he has an idea of the beings that brought them here, but he leaves Senta to his fate when he sees the tempted look he had on. When everyone is gathered, the tree life form reveals that the island's true name is Shinsenkyo Kotaku, and that the elixir of life they are searching for is called Tan, and is located in the center of the island called Horai. Gabimaru then asks the tree life form if it has any evidence that the elixir exists. The tree life form informs him that all his doubts will be removed once he finally encounters those known as Lord Tensen, as he explains that they are immortal beings who pose an even greater threat than the Soshin. He also lets them know that his politeness is his way of honoring their final requests before Lord Tensen finishes them off, as no human has ever managed to survive an encounter with them. Gabimaru, using Senta's sword, and Yuzuria point their weapons at the tree lifeform, after interpreting this as a hostile statement, but he assures them that he has no such feelings or affection towards them as he is simply telling the truth. He further explains that Lord Tensen are the higher beings on the island who have control over the Soshin. They punish invaders by turning them into flowers, which is the source of Tan. Although Yuzuria believes this to be simply a legend, the living form of the tree proved the existence of the elixir by showing them its regeneration after it had broken its arm. Seeing this, Gabimaru turns his attention to the girl, wondering if she too can regenerate, only to be reprimanded by Sagiri and Yuzuria for pointing a sword at the young girl. The tree lifeform warns that their fate ultimately lies in the hands of the gods of Shinsenkyo and that leaving the island will not be an easy task. At the same time that the tree lifeform spoke to Gabimaru group, Chōbei and Tōma witnessed the blonde Tensen regenerating the severed half of his body damaged by Chōbei. They were then defeated by the Tensen, and their bodies were thrown into a pit, full of flowering humans. Later, Gabimaru goes to the bathroom to rinse his wounds while continuing to be monitored by Sagiri. Gabimaru states her following her was better by being too relaxed as he noticed how lethargic she was after her bath, but Sagiri denies it. Given the information they received from the tree lifeform known as Hōko, Gabimaru and Sagiri begin to doubt whether they should really believe its word, especially given its statement about Lord Tensen, with whom Senta forms a connection, as well as the terms Soshin and Horai, to the religion of Taoism. Although he is unsure, Gabimaru believes that they can work things out later, and what matters is whether or not they will stop his group from acquiring the elixir of life, as he would rather not waste any time and get it over with. Upon entering the bathhouse, Gabimaru and Sagiri find the young girl named Mei naked, which causes her to cry once again. Despite the situation, Gabimaru continues to undress and explains that he is used to bathing with other people since people in his village have to bathe together regardless of their age or gender. Sagiri is next to Mei when Gabimaru changes, and she noticed a scar on the young girl's body, and the fact that her hair and skin are dirty, even though there are bath products in the bathhouse. She then decides to repay her debt to the girl for giving them food and shelter, by giving her a proper bath along with Gabimaru, as she thought he needed time to relax his body. Using the products she has on hand, Sagiri first cleans Mei's hair, for which she thanks her with a hug. While washing, Gabimaru remembers the time when his wife helped him bathe. His wife tells Gabimaru not to be ashamed when she washes him, but he makes it clear that he doesn't like baths because they take away his tension and fighting instinct. His wife then pours a bucket of water over his head and asks if this meant she was stealing his luck in battle. She then advises him to relax body, to prepare for living his life, as she believes this to be the real battle he has to face. After considering her words, Gabimaru is asked to enter the water, but he protests because he doesn't like it, causing his wife to compare his reaction as that of a cat. After the bath, Gabimaru suggests that she not hide her scar behind her bangs since he doesn't mind it. Although she makes it clear that it was how she liked styling her hair, she agrees to fulfill his wish nonetheless. Gabimaru remembers this memory and tells Mei not to be ashamed of her scar. Although Sagiri tells him that it's not that easy for women, Gabimaru disagrees because he knows a woman with a big scar who he considers beautiful, and that appearances don't matter. This surprises Sagiri as she didn't think he could be so respectful. Mei then reaches for Gabimaru's shirt, giving him an appreciative and awestruck look. As they head back to the house, Sagiri begins to see Gabimaru in a new light. She thinks he's not such a bad person, and smiles because she thinks he's starting to change. On the other hand, Gabimaru remembers his priorities, and the fact that he can't afford to waste any more time. And with that, we conclude this episode. Please like and subscribe for the next. Thank you for watching.